A man stands, staring into the horizon, in a quite empty town. Two more men ride into the empty town. The three men walk towards each other, their hands fiddling with their guns. They both nodded at each other as they stood in front of a door. They draw their guns and step into the building. Bullets are fired, and a man breaks through the window, rushing towards a horse with a bottle. He climbs a horse and rides out of town, into the desert. This is the Ugly. His name is Tuco. Of the three men who enter the building, only one steps out, and he is wounded. He tries to fire at the fleeing Tuco before he falls back into the building, clearly wounded. A boy is using a donkey to pump water when a strange man on a horse rides towards his home. He gets off the donkey and runs off to tell his father. The stranger rides into the compound calmly. He stands at the door as he looks into the home. The boy returns with his father, and the father stares at the stranger before sending the boy and his mother away. He takes a seat and begins to eat. The stranger walks into the building, and as he sits at the table, he begins to eat. The man quickly asks the stranger whether Baker sent him. He tells him to tell Baker to stop disturbing him, saying that he had told him all that he knows and knows nothing about the gold coins. He told him he had even gone to the army court and nothing could be discovered. The stranger, who is just hearing about the gold for the first time, informs him that Baker knows a certain Jackson has visited, one who is believed to have stolen the gold coins. His only problem is that he doesn't know the present alias of Jackson, as he had been searching for him but couldn't trace him. The man tells the stranger the name Jackson is using now, a certain Bill Carson. He then offers the stranger money, and he then draws his pistol when the stranger refuses to act in line with the bribe. The stranger shoots him before he can fully draw his gun. He takes the $2,000 the man had offered and also kills a younger man who comes down the stairs with a rifle. The man's wife faints as she returns to the house, only to see dead bodies. The stranger is Angel Eyes. He is the bad. Angel Eyes returns to Baker, tells him all the man had said, and also tells him the man had paid for him to kill him. Baker begins to laugh, but Angel Eyes simply takes his pillow, puts on his Baker's face, and shoots him. Tuco is captured by bounty hunters when suddenly a man with blonde hair comes into their circle. He prompts a gun duel, which he wins in a slide. He then proceeds to hand over Tuco to the authorities of a town. Tuco showers him with abuses as he hands him over to the authorities. Tuco is sent to the gallows. Before he is hanged, all his crimes are recited, and the final verdict of death by hanging is said by the judge. As soon as he is hanged before he is strangled, the blonde shoots him down. They both ride out of town into the wilderness, where they share the $2,000 blonde had been paid, the bounty on Tuco's head. Tuco demands that he be paid more, as he is the one being hung. Blonde tells him that if his money is reduced, his effectiveness at hitting the hanging rope might just decrease. Meanwhile, Angel Eyes has begun his search for Jackson. He pays a certain shorty, one whose lower part of the body is lost. He tells Angel Eyes the full story of how certain Confederate officers, Baker, Stephen, and Jackson, or all that is left of a convoy that was ambushed by the Yankees, a convoy with 3,000 gold coins missing. He is told that Jackson had been acquitted, had changed his name, and was living with a certain Maria. Blonde and Tuco are in town, where Tuco is about to be hanged. A woman rants about how he deserves to be hanged. Angel Eyes glances at Tuco and says men like that don't always hang, they normally have an angel, a blonde angel, he says as he sees Blonde on top of a horse watching. After the judge calls out all of Tuco's crimes, he orders him to hang until he dies. Blonde fires at the rope, which strangely does not cut at the first shot. He fires a second, which cuts the rope, and he sees both of the men fleeing the town. When they are both safely in the wilderness, Tuco rants about how Blonde had not cut the rope at his first shot. He says no one should miss. When Tuco is at the end of a rope, he shouts out his grievances. Blonde tells him their partnership is often that he doesn't believe Tuco would ever be worth more than $3,000. He tells him to save his strength as the nearest town is 70 miles away. The blonde rides off. As Tuco rains abuse on him, he promises to kill him. Blonde turns and says, "After all the time, I have saved your life." Blonde is good. It is nighttime in a town, and a carriage with drunk men singing passes a building. A woman is thrown off the carriage. She curses at the drunk men. Then she hears a voice call her name. She thinks it is Bill and runs off to her room. Only caught by Angel Eyes, he demands to know where Billy is. She refuses to speak, which leads to Angel Eyes slapping and the man handling her. She eventually tells him he has gone to Santa Fe. Angel Eyes shoves her to the bed and leaves. Tuco survives the wilderness. He rushes into a town, going straight for water before he heads toward a store where guns are being sold. He gets the best of the guns in the house, robs the store owner, and sets out with a laugh. He heads towards what is a bandit hideout where he meets up with 3 strange men who he is familiar with. He gets them to join him in seeking out Blonde, who he says has close to $4,000 in cash, promising to give everyone $1,000 each. He traces him to a guest house. Blonde is busy cleaning his pistol, and as cannonballs fall around the town, the Confederates are losing the war. A large number of Confederate soldiers are leaving the town. The owner of the guest house is forced by Tuco to give up Blonde's room number. His 3 friends then go up. Blonde feels something is wrong and begins to put his pistol back together as quickly as possible. The 3 men burst into the room, and Blonde shot all of them down before they could even fire, but Tuco came from behind the window of the room, holding Blonde at gunpoint. He instructed Blonde to tie a rope to the ceiling and put his head into the noose. As Blonde is about to put his head down, a cannon blasts into the guest house, causing the floor Tuco is on to break and Tuco to fall to the ground floor. Blonde escapes. Angel Eyes enters what is a Confederate military camp in search of Bill Carson. He is met by a Confederate soldier who takes him around the camp, filled with injured men, and demonstrates their serious lack of any amenities. Angel Eyes bribes him with a drink to know where Bill Carson is. The man tells him that if Bill Carson is in the 3rd, then he will be off to Glorietta, but he doubts if they are still alive. A certain Colonel Canby is right on their heels. Angel Eyes asks what if they are still alive, and the Confederate soldier says then they would be sent to one of those Yankee prisons, which was worse than death due to what was done to Confederate prisoners. Angel Eyes leaves. Tuco pursues Blonde. He traces him through the campfires he leaves behind, and with his cigarette, he follows his trail to a town where a certain shorty is about to be hanged. Blonde is somewhere, readying his rifle to shoot the hanging rope off the man, the form of business partnership he had with Tuco. Tuco points a gun at his face. Blonde asks if he can free Shorty, and Tuco shakes his head negatively. Blonde says sorry, Tuco. Tuco takes Blonde at gunpoint. He forces him to disarm himself and follow him as they ride through a desert that even the Confederate soldiers are afraid of going through. He and Blonde go into the desert, and when Tuco drinks some water, Blonde also brings his bottle to drink, but it is shot off his hands by a laughing Tuco. Tuco drags Blonde through the desert, whose face and body get burned by the heat as the desert sand sticks to his face. Blonde becomes extremely weak due to the desert heat. Tuco tells him this was a repayment for him, leaving him behind in the wilderness. Tuco points his gun at Blonde, but before he can shoot, he hears the sound of a rushing carriage pulled by horses without any handler. Tuco rushes off to stop the horses, which he succeeds in doing. He then opens the carriage, only to see dead bodies. He crosses, and he then begins to search for valuables. When some of the supposedly dead people pop out asking for water, Tuco asks him what happened to them, and the dying man tells him it was an ambush. The man asks Tuco to give him water in exchange for the location of $200,000. Tuco grabs him, ignoring his pleas for water. He asks him where the money is, and the dying man murmurs that it is in a graveyard. He then seemingly faints. Tuco shouts as he asks for the name of the graveyard. He tells the man not to die as he rushes off to get water, only to return to see a weak blonde very close to the dying man. He pushes him away from the dying man, only to realize that the man is dead. Blonde tells him that he knows the name of the grave where the gold is buried. Tuco's attitude towards him makes a turn. Tuco begs the blonde, who has lost consciousness, not to die as he pours water on him. Tuco takes Bill Carson's uniform and rushes off with the carriage with a weak blonde to a monastery, where he demands treatment for blonde. Blonde recovers, and Tuco meets his brother, the head of the monastery, in a meeting that doesn't go quite well. Now Tuco and blonde have renewed their partnership, as blonde only knows the name of the grave and Tuco knows the name of the graveyard. They are both working together as they navigate towards where the graveyard is. Tuco and blonde come across a cavalry of soldiers. Tuco screams in support of the Confederate army, thinking they were Confederate soldiers, only for them to dust off their dust-filled clothes and reveal themselves to be Yankees. Blonde and Tuco get captured. They are both sent to a Yankee prison. In the Yankee prison, Blonde and Tuco see Angel Eyes and quickly recognize him. Tuco uses the name of the dead Bill Carson. He gets roughed up for not answering his name on time and not saying present. Angel Eyes demands that he and Blonde be treated well before marching off to answer the summons of the prison commander. After meeting with the commander, who informs Angel Eyes that he knows of the abuse he has been dishing out to the prisoners and that he would not condone such, the commander hoped that he lived long enough to gather evidence to court-martial him. Angel Eyes is undisturbed by this. He instead invites Tuco to his cabin, then has the musicians play loud music as he interrogates him for the location of the gold after he successfully links Bill Carson to Tuco, who is with Bill Carson's tobacco container. He has one of his henchmen, who is a Yankee, beat him up to an inch of his life. Tuco spills the beans. He tells him the location of the graveyard but says only Blonde knows the name of the grave. Angel Eyes and Blonde set out for the graveyard while Tuco is put on a train with the Yankee soldier. Tuco escapes by jumping off the train and using the Yankee to upset his fall. He kills the Yankee and pursues Blonde and Angel Eyes. Angel Eyes brings in his henchmen in a move to make it difficult for Blonde to escape. They all enter a town that is under cannon fire. In the town, Blonde meets Tuco, and they both engage in a gun battle with Angel Eyes' henchmen. They kill all of his henchmen, but somehow Angel Eyes escapes. Tuco and Blonde continue on their journey. They help a captain blow up a bridge, and while at it, they both reveal their respective secrets. Tuco tells Blonde the name of the graveyard, and Blonde the name written on the grave tombstone. After blowing up the bridge, Blonde goes to help a fallen soldier who is dying slowly. Tuco takes off with a horse, and Blonde shoots him off the horse with cannon fire. Tuco still manages to reach the graveyard. He runs around the graveyard in search of the grave. He finally sees a grave with the name Blonde had given him. He tries digging it with a plank, but Blonde comes along and gives him a shovel. Angel Eyes comes along with a drawn gun. Tuco opens the coffin only to see that it is empty. Blonde undisturbed tells the two men that $200,000 is a lot of money, and they had to work for it. The three men then engage in a gun battle. Tuco and Blonde shoot at Angel Eyes, and Blonde fires the last shot that kills him. Tuco realizes that Blonde has removed the bullets from his gun and screams at him. Blonde tells him the real grave where the gold is, the grave that has no name. Tuco digs open the grave. He is happy as he sees the gold, only for Blonde to tell him to put his head in a noose and hang it. Blonde leaves him and rides off with his share of gold. Tuco screams at him until he slips off the cross he was standing on. He begins to choke. Blonde returns and shoots him down from the gallows. Tuco curses at Blonde as he rides off into the sunset.
Remember to subscribe and turn on notifications, so you can watch more movies like this. Thanks for watching.